things we see wrong is people either having their hands turned in or trying to dive their head in between their two hands. That puts the shoulders in an awful spot and, well, you look like that, so don't do it. All right, so today we're going over push-ups and we have 3 beautiful models here, but what we want to demonstrate is keeping your low back tight, keeping your abs engaged. So go ahead and lower all the way down. Now, they can get to the very bottom, and if you look, there's no pressure, their shoulders are safe. If you look, each person's hands are right under their armpits, so it's in a good, safe spot. Nobody has their face in between their two hands. That's the right way to do it, is just like how they have it here. Now, when they push up, go ahead and push up. You'll see abs stay engaged, everything stays in the right spot of staying level from shoulder going all the way to toes. You'll see hips are slightly up just a little bit to keep abs engaged. Go all the way back down again, guys. Look at Mickey smile, I like it. So Mickey, go from your toes, Ashley and Roller are gonna go from their knees. Now you'll see the position does not change at all, so go ahead and push back up. Their hand position stayed the same. If anything, that looked harder for Ashley on that one. And you go from that position, but if you look, everything is straight from shoulders down to knees. Go ahead and lower slow one more time, guys. So again, chest is basically the center spot, hands are right on either side of the armpits and never going down face towards your hands. Your face should be up and extended beyond the mat. Guys, one more time up to the top. Boom. The next thing we see wrong is people doing a worm. And what you'll see is her low back is dipping and putting a lot of pressure on the hips and on the low back. And then also, she's not really doing a push-up because she's just kind of humping a mat. And so the last thing we see is turning a push-up into a pike. So still going from your toes, thinking that you're doing it the correct way, but what happens is the abs are not engaged, the low back gives out, and now the shoulders are in a very compromised position because of how your head is dropping down between your two hands. So some of the common mistakes we see on squats is never breaking the hip plane. Hips never break, never get back, pushing back towards the wall. Knees kind of never bend, and everything is kind of just doing a halfway effort. The next thing we see is leaning way too far forward at the waist, and basically the knees bend slightly, but it's all a low back, good morning type movement. The next is putting too much emphasis on the knees. So the knees are bending forward, and the hips are never going back. So the glutes never get any of the effort, and the knees are taking all the damage. The next is trying to put hands on knees, and you're kind of pushing forward, using your shoulders, using everything that shouldn't be done, and your knees start to buckle in a little bit because of just the natural tendency of when you lean forward. Like for squat form, what you want to do is have a stance that's about shoulder width or slightly wider. If you have any knee type issues, you're going to want to go just a little bit wider than shoulder width. Pointing toes out is going to help to relieve pressure off the knees. So what we're going to do first is their hips are going to break back. So hips break back. Butt leads towards the wall, and that's the first movement, and then you sink into your hips. This position here from 90 degrees or a little higher should be a comfortable spot, but it's on your hips and your glutes that are feeling the pull, not on your knees. Stand back up. As they stand back up, they're leading with the hips, the butt pinches at the top, that way they're squeezing cheeks, and that way everything is all in the glutes and not in the low back. So one more time, hips lead the way. Sitting back and right back up. One more time, sit back, leading with the hips and right back up. Look at those LiveFit trainers. For a hollow hold, a lot of people have low back pain and they think that they're actually making it better by putting their hands beneath their low back, but what you're doing is accentuating the problem. So what you need to do first is bring your knees up to a 90 degree. That's going to force your low back to make contact with the ground. Then when you roll your shoulders up, hands will leave the ground slightly, and now you're in a position where your low back is in constant contact. For some people, this will be the end of the movement, and this is as far as you're going to take it. To make it more advanced, you're going to push your feet away from your body, and you want to make sure that your low back is still staying in contact. If at any point you feel your low back separate, then that's where you're going to want to go back to the starting position again and then reassess where you can go towards as far as your range of motion. A perfect, can you make it all the way back? Is right in that spot right there where the low back is staying in contact with the ground, legs are elevated, shoulders are elevated, and again, this is Mickey shaking, so if you think that you are dominating by doing your way, you are not. And then she reassesses just like that. So perfect, you want to make sure your low back is always staying in contact. What we don't want to see is with people trying to go at a harder, more advanced way of trying to just stick their legs all the way out, but what's happening is they're putting their hands underneath their low back. If you look, she's making the same accentuated bridge that we're trying to avoid here, and really the low back should stay in constant contact with the ground, which anytime your hands are underneath your back, that is not possible. All right, so the next one is jumping jacks. So what we see incorrectly on jumping jacks is this. Either short arming and not coming up all the way to the top, or we see halfway of hands going up, kind of like some scarecrow position. For proper form, wait a second, let's switch this out here. All right, for proper form, you're gonna start all the way at the bottom. You should go to a full extension, hands touch over top and right back down. Beautifully executed. plank, whatever is in the mid-range between your toes and your hands is where the most pressure is going to be felt, as long as there's a straight line. With this positioning here, the only pressure right now is basically being shoulder. The next position we see incorrect is the low back being dipped too low. You'll see all that pressure is going to be on his low back, and that's going to cause a lot more pain, where the whole point of a plank is supposed to be to strengthen the core. So he'll tilt his hips back just a little bit, suck the belly button in, and keep his core nice and tight. You'll see again, his shoulders are over elbows, keeping everything in proper form. Now we're just going to talk for as long as we can, so we see how long Mickey can last into a plank position. So you'll see she's engaged with her toes. Everything should be activated from the toes, pushing away on the ground. Her shoulders are directly above her elbows, so in a good position. Hands are flat, palms are against the ground. And we're just going to see how well Mickey can do with her proper form. I think there's more weights right behind her too, Rolo. Perfectly done.